Hey there, everyone. Today we are talking about sports in ancient Greece. So let's get into it. The ancient Greeks were pretty serious about their sports. They loved to compete in all sorts of athletic events, from running and jumping to boxing and horse racing. And they took their competitions very seriously. In fact, some historians say that the ancient Olympics, which were held in Greece every 4 years starting in 776 BC, were the first true international games. The ancient Greeks believed that sports were an important part of life, and they had a lot of different events. One of the most popular types of events was running. The ancient Greeks loved to race, and they would compete in all sorts of distances. The shortest race was the stade, which was about 192 meters. Then there was the diolos, which was twice the length of the stade, and the dolichos, which was a long-distance race. The runners would compete in various styles, sometimes fully clothed and sometimes in just a hat and sandals. But no matter what they wore, they were all very determined to win. Another popular type of event was the pentathlon. The pentathlon was a combination of 5 different events: the long jump, the javelin throw, the discus throw, a foot race, and wrestling. It was considered the most prestigious event at the Olympics, and the winner would be awarded the crown. Of all the pentathletes, the long jump was perhaps the most exciting. The ancient Greeks loved to watch people fly through the air, and the long jump was one of the few events where they could see this happen. The long jumper would start by holding a weight in one hand, then they would swing the weight over their head and release it while jumping forward. The goal was to jump as far as possible, and the person who jumped the farthest won. Speaking of weights, the ancient Greeks were also big fans of throwing things. They would compete in the javelin throw and the discus throw. And both events required a lot of strength and technique. The javelin throw was a bit different from the long jump because the long jumper didn't hold the weight in their hand. They would instead place it on a special board and then run up to it and kick it off with their foot. The javelin was also longer than the weight used for the long jump, and it had a sharp point on one end. The goal of the javelin throw was to throw it as far as possible, and the person who threw it the farthest won. The discus was also thrown for distance, and the ancient Greeks used special discs made of stone, bronze, or iron. They would spin the discus around their head and then let it go. The goal was to throw it as far as possible, and the person who threw it the farthest won. Of course, you can't talk about sports without mentioning combat sports. The ancient Greeks loved to box and wrestle, and they took their fights very seriously. In fact, some historians say that the ancient Olympics were so violent that they were almost like a battle between the different Greek city-states. Boxing was a brutal affair. The ancient Greeks didn't use gloves, so the boxers would wrap leather straps around their hands to protect themselves. They would punch and kick their opponents until one of them couldn't fight anymore. The ancient Greeks believed that boxing was a great way to test a man's strength and endurance. And the winner of a boxing match was truly a sight to behold. Wrestling was another popular combat sport in ancient Greece, and it was a bit different from boxing. In wrestling, the goal was to pin your opponent to the ground using only your body weight. There was no punching or kicking allowed. The ancient Greeks believed that wrestling was a great way to test a man's strength and agility. And the winner of a wrestling match was truly a champion. Now, pankration was the most brutal combat sport of all. It was a combination of wrestling, boxing, and striking, and pretty much anything else goes. The only thing that was not allowed was biting and eye gouging. So if you can imagine something worse than MMA, that was probably pankration. The ancient Greeks believed that pankration was the ultimate test of a man's courage and strength. And the winner of a pankration match was truly a legend. But not all sports in ancient Greece were about fighting. The ancient Greeks also loved to ride horses, and they would compete in all sorts of equestrian events. Horse racing was one of the most exciting events at the ancient Olympics. The ancient Greeks would gather around the hippodrome to watch chariots and horses race around the track. The crowds would cheer as the horses thundered past them, and the excitement was palpable. Chariot racing was also a popular event, and it was a bit different from horse racing because the driver had to control several horses at once. The goal was to race around the track as fast as possible, and the crowd would go wild when a new chariot broke the record. There were also other kinds of games that the ancient Greeks played. Some of them were team ball sports like episkiros. Episkiros was kind of like a combination of rugby and soccer, and the teams would try to score by getting the ball into the other team's goal. The ancient Greeks didn't have a soccer ball, so they would use whatever they had, like a leather sack full of blood and guts. Yep, that's right. That was totally normal for the ancient Greeks. But don't worry, they also had a sense of humor, and they would play a game called kotabos. In kotabos, each player would stand up and try to flick the last piece of food off their plate into the opponent's plate. The ancient Greeks loved to watch this game because it was always funny to see people covered in food. Now, even though the ancient Greeks loved to play sports, they didn't always play them the right way. Sometimes they would cheat or try to rig the games in their favor. For example, in the long jump, some athletes would use weights that were too heavy, and this would give them an unfair advantage. So eventually the ancient Greeks had to make rules about how much the weights could weigh. Also, some athletes would train for the Olympics by competing in local games. But the problem was that some of these athletes weren't very good, and they would lose all the time. So to make sure that the Olympics were more competitive, the ancient Greeks started a system where only the best athletes could compete. They also made sure that the Olympics were held in Olympia, a small town that was far away from everything. This was to make sure that no one could cheat by bringing in reinforcements or using trickery. But despite all the cheating and the politics, the ancient Greeks still loved their sports, and they competed in all sorts of events, from running to wrestling to horse racing. They took their competitions very seriously, and the winners were celebrated throughout the Greek world. You know, I really wish we could bring back some of these ancient Greek sports today. Imagine if we had events like kotabos and the pentathlon at the Olympics. Now that would be something to watch. So what do you think? Did you learn something new about ancient Greece? Which sport was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to stay tuned for more videos about ancient history. Thanks for watching. The ancient Olympic Games were a spectacle of athletics, culture, and societal values. So, how exactly did they influence the modern Olympic Games? Join us as we explore the profound impact of ancient Greece on the Olympics today. Many of the core athletic competitions of the modern Olympics can be traced back directly to ancient Greece. These include a variety of foot races such as the stadium race, long jump, discus throw, javelin throw, and wrestling, as well as boxing, which has since evolved into many different weight classes. The ancient pentathlon, a combination of 5 events, running, long jump, discus throw, spear throw, and wrestling, is an early ancestor to modern combined events like the decathlon. The ancient combat sport of pankration, a no-holds-barred fighting style that combined elements of wrestling and boxing, is considered by some to be an early precursor to modern mixed martial arts. The ancient Olympics popularized certain sports and established values that still resonate with the modern day. One major influence is the concept of physical excellence. Ancient Greeks believed that the human body was a temple to be admired, and that athletics could help individuals achieve physical perfection. This emphasis on the beauty and importance of the human form continues to inspire athletes and artists even today. The ancient Olympic Games were also one of the earliest large-scale international sporting events. It provided a platform for athletes from different regions to come together and compete against one another. This fostered a sense of healthy competition and camaraderie, values that are central to the Olympic spirit today. But it wasn't just about the competition. The ancient Olympic Games were also deeply rooted in religious tradition. They were dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods, and were held at his sanctuary at Olympia. The games were seen as a way to honor the divine and maintain harmony between humans and the gods. Similarly, the modern Olympics, while not explicitly religious, still retain a sense of ceremony and pageantry. The Olympic truce, or ikacheria, was a remarkable ancient Greek concept that had a profound impact on the ancient Olympic Games. Instituted around 700 BC by the Spartan king, it was a sacred truce that halted all hostilities throughout Greece during the Games, allowing for safe passage and participation of athletes from potentially warring city-states. This gesture of peaceful coexistence was a cornerstone of the Olympic ideal, reflecting the ancient Greeks' pursuit of harmony and unity amidst their frequent conflicts. Even today, the Olympic truce is invoked to promote peace and dialogue during the Games. Though its contemporary relevance is more symbolic, as it is often overshadowed by political tensions and conflict. Peace that persists despite the Olympic spirit. The concept of the Olympic truce serves as a powerful reminder of the potential for sport to transcend differences and foster understanding. The ancient Olympics played a significant role in shaping the organization and structure of sports competitions, laying the groundwork for modern Olympic Games. The ancient Games established the precedent of holding a multi-sport festival every 4 years, a concept that has been directly inherited by the modern Olympics. This interval of 4 years, known as an Olympiad, became the standard for major sporting events. Additionally, the ancient Olympics introduced the practice of awarding victors with laurels, which evolved into the presentation of medals in modern times. These traditions continue to be observed in the Olympics today, ensuring a sense of continuity between ancient and modern sporting culture. Moreover, the ancient Olympic Games served as a model for the revival of the Olympics in the modern era. In the late 19th century, Pierre de Coubertin, the French aristocrat who spearheaded the revival of the Olympics, was greatly inspired by the ancient Greek Games. He admired their historical significance, the values they embodied, and their potential to unite people worldwide. Coubertin's vision for the modern Olympics was deeply influenced by the ancient tradition, and he sought to emulate its spirit and ideals. The ancient Olympic Games stand out as a defining moment in the history of sports and culture, leaving an indelible mark on the world long after their conclusion. Their influence can be seen in the sports we compete, the values we uphold, and the very structure of modern Olympic Games. The ancient Greeks laid the foundation for athletic competition, instilling ideals of excellence, courage, and camaraderie that continue to resonate today. Their achievements serve as a reminder of humanity's enduring pursuit of greatness and the power of sport to unite us across cultures and time. The ancient Olympic Games were not just a display of physical prowess, but a reflection of the deep cultural and societal values of ancient Greece. They played a pivotal role in shaping the cultural landscape of the time, bringing together people from different city-states under the banner of friendly competition. The Games were an integral part of Greek society, embodying their ideals and fostering a sense of shared identity. The revival of the Olympic Games in the modern era is a testament to their enduring cultural influence. Today, athletes from all corners of the globe gather to compete in the Olympic spirit, carrying forward the torch ignited by the ancient Greeks. The Olympic flame, a symbol of this continuity, is lit in Olympia, Greece, where the ancient Games were held, symbolizing the Games' timeless legacy. In the realm of sports, the ancient Olympics left an unparalleled legacy. The list of sports that found their roots in ancient Greece is extensive, contributing significantly to the repertoire of modern athletics. Foot races, including the iconic Stadion race, were among the earliest and most popular events in the ancient Games. Long jump, discus throw, and javelin throw were testaments to the Greeks' appreciation for aesthetics and precision. Wrestling and boxing showcased the strength and skill of the athletes, while the pentathlon demonstrated versatility and athleticism. The inclusion of these sports in both ancient and modern Olympics highlights the enduring appeal and universal recognition of their athletic merit. The ancient Olympics had a profound impact on the values and ethics associated with sports. Concepts like sportsmanship, fair play, and the pursuit of excellence were deeply ingrained in the Greek approach to competition. The emphasis on self-discipline, respect for opponents, and the pursuit of personal best continue to shape the ethos of modern sports. The ancient Greeks believed that victory was not just about winning, but about striving for excellence and upholding the ideals of the Games. Ancient Greece had a profound impact on the values and ethics associated with sports. Concepts like sportsmanship, fair play, and the pursuit of excellence were deeply ingrained in the Greek approach to competition. The emphasis on self-discipline, respect for opponents, and the pursuit of personal best continue to shape the ethos of modern sports. The ancient Greeks believed that victory was not just about winning, but about striving for excellence and upholding the ideals of the Games. The ancient Olympic Games were not merely a sporting event. They were an integral part of ancient Greek culture. The games played a vital role in fostering a sense of identity, unity and pride among the diverse city-states of Greece. The gathering of athletes and spectators from across Greece created a platform for cultural exchange, promoting a shared heritage and celebrating the achievements of the Greek world. This cultural influence laid the groundwork for the modern Olympic Games, which similarly aim to bring people together from all corners of the globe to celebrate the unifying power of sports. The ancient Olympic Games were deeply rooted in the cultural fabric of ancient Greece, serving as a microcosm of Greek society, values and beliefs. They were much more than just a sporting event. The games were an integral part of Greek religious practice, a way to honor the gods and maintain harmony between the divine and the mortal world. The rituals, ceremonies, and festivals surrounding the Olympics reflected the deeply religious nature of Greek culture. The Olympic truce, a sacred period of peace and unity established by the ancient Greeks during the Olympic Games, had a profound impact on the course of history. This remarkable tradition highlighted the power of sport to transcend conflict and promote peace. By temporarily halting hostilities during the Games, the ancient Greeks demonstrated the potential for humanity to find common ground and coexist peacefully. The concept of the Olympic truce continues to inspire calls for peace and dialogue even in our modern times. Ancient Greece made significant contributions to the development and evolution of sports. Their innovations and practices continue to influence and shape the world of sports today. The ancient Olympic Games, held in Olympia, Greece, were a monumental achievement of the ancient Greek civilization. Held every 4 years, these games brought together people from across Greece and were dedicated to the god Zeus. The program included a variety of sports and competitions that tested strength, speed, endurance, and skill. The Olympic Games were not just about competition, but also about celebrating the human spirit and the pursuit of excellence. They were a time for people to come together, exchange ideas, and build alliances. The Games had a profound impact on the culture and society of ancient Greece. They fostered a sense of unity, pride, and identity among the Greek people and inspired awe and wonder among spectators. The Olympic Games in ancient Greece were truly a remarkable feat of human achievement. They were a celebration of the power of the human body and the potential of the human spirit. And their legacy continues to inspire us today. We hope you enjoyed learning about the profound influence of ancient Greek sports on the modern Olympic Games. If so, please show your support. Your engagement means the world to us. And if you're eager to continue exploring more fascinating topics, stay tuned for more informative and entertaining content. Thank you for being a part of our community. When you think of ancient Greece, you may picture philosophers like Socrates and Plato or the great works of art and architecture that have stood the test of time. But did you know that the ancient Greeks were also crazy about sports? Just like us today, the ancient Greeks loved to watch sporting events and cheer on their favorite athletes. They had their own versions of baseball, basketball, soccer, and even wrestling. In fact, some of the sports they played are still popular today. So let us take a trip back in time and explore some of the most popular sports in ancient Greece. First up is running. If you've ever been to the Olympics, you'll know that the 100-meter dash is one of the most exciting events. Well, believe it or not, the ancient Greeks were just as thrilled by the simple foot race. In ancient Greece, there were several categories of racing. The stadion was the short sprint, roughly 192 meters. The double lap or dialos was twice the length of the stadion, while the dolichos was a long-distance race with variations of 2, 4, and even 5 stadium lengths. The hoplitodromos was a unique race where runners competed fully armed in their iconic hoplite armor, which weighed around 30 kilograms. This event was designed to test the endurance of the body and will of the athlete. Hoplitodromos was also considered a symbol of military readiness in case of an invasion. For the ancient Greeks, running was more than just a sport. It was an essential part of being physically fit and disciplined, which were traits highly valued in Greek culture. It was believed that a good runner was not just physically strong, but also mentally sharp and self-controlled. Running was integrated into everyday life, and even boys as young as 7 could participate in races at festivals dedicated to the god Apollo. The most famous racing event was the stadium at the Olympic Games. Imagine the roar of the crowd as the runners charged down the track in a cloud of dust, each straining to be the first to cross the line. The winner would be crowned with a wreath of olive leaves and be celebrated as a hero. Next up, we have pancration. If you're looking for a real test of strength and endurance, then you can't beat pancration. This full-contact combat sport was developed from the fusion of boxing and wrestling. And trust me, it was brutal. And like modern boxing, pancration had no rules. Fighters could use any means necessary to make their opponent submit or black out. Now this wasn't for the faint of heart, but it was certainly a spectacle to behold. Picture two sweaty, dirt-covered fighters locked in a fierce embrace, throwing punches, kicks and knee strikes while the crowd roars with excitement. To win a match, a fighter had to submit or knock their opponent out. If neither fighter gave up, the match could go on for hours. No wonder pancration was considered the most terrifying sport in ancient Greece. It took immense strength, endurance and fighting skills to survive and win a pancration match. The sport was so demanding that only men over the age of 18 were allowed to compete. Even the spectators had to be over 16. There were even special categories for younger age groups. The best pancration fighters were known as pancratists, and they were truly the ultimate athletes. They needed to be strong enough to overpower their opponents, quick enough to dodge attacks, and resilient enough to withstand pain and exhaustion. But pancration was more than just a test of physical strength. It also required strategy and mental toughness. Fighters had to stay calm and focused in the face of danger and exploit any weakness in their opponent as defense. It was a true test of human endurance, strength, and willpower. Now let's talk about wrestling. In ancient Greece, wrestling was more than just a sport. It was considered one of the most important skills a young man could learn. It was seen as a test of strength, skill, and masculinity. The ancient Greeks believed that a good wrestler was not only physically strong, but also mentally sharp and disciplined. That's why wrestling was taught in every gymnasium in ancient Greece. And it wasn't just about winning matches. Wrestling was seen as a way to develop character and build self-confidence. In Greek literature, wrestlers were often depicted as heroes and role models for young men. The main form of wrestling in ancient Greece was called pale, which means white skin in Greek. This referred to the chalk dust that wrestlers would cover themselves in during competitions. The goal of a match was to throw your opponent to the ground 3 times without using any striking moves. The first person to achieve this would win the match. Wrestlers would use a variety of techniques such as holds, throws, and pins to try and get the upper hand on their opponent. The sport required a lot of skill, technique, and mental focus, as well as physical strength and stamina. Wrestlers would train for years to perfect their moves and compete against other skilled athletes. The most famous wrestling event in ancient Greece was held during the Pan-Hellenic Games, which were a series of athletic competitions that were held in honor of the gods. The winners of these games were seen as heroes, and their achievements were celebrated throughout the Greek world. So if you're watching WWE now, you know who to thank. Have you ever wanted to be an all-rounder, excel in everything from running to jumping to javelin throwing? Well, the ancient Greeks had the sport for you, the pentathlon. This event consisted of 5 different competitions: the long jump, javelin throw, discus throw, foot race, and wrestling. It was the ultimate test of an athlete's versatility and skill. Each discipline tested a different aspect of the athlete's abilities, whether it was speed, power, agility, or technique. To win the pentathlon, an athlete had to be well trained in all 5 disciplines. This made the pentathlon one of the most exciting events at the Olympic Games. The crowd would roar with excitement as each athlete competed in front of them, showing off their amazing skills. Winning the pentathlon was a huge honor, and the victors were celebrated throughout the land. The pentathlon was more than just a test of physical abilities. It was also a test of mental fortitude and strategic thinking. Each event required a different strategy, and the athletes had to be able to adapt and change their approach based on the demands of each discipline. They had to be able to push through exhaustion and pain, knowing that their performance in one event could make or break their chances of winning the overall competition. The pentathlon was more than just a sport. It was a celebration of the human spirit, a testament to the power of hard work and dedication. Next, let's look at discus and javelin throw. In ancient Greece, the discus throw and javelin throw were not just sports, they were a way of life. These events were a staple of the Olympic Games and were seen as a test of an athlete's strength, skill and technique. The discus throw, or discos, involved throwing a heavy disc-shaped object from maximum distance. The javelin throw, or akinshin, required athletes to hurl a spear-like missile with incredible accuracy. These events were not for the weak-willed. They demanded intense physical exertion and precision that could only be achieved through years of practice and dedication. Athletes would train for hours each day, honing their throwing techniques and building up their strength and stamina. But the benefits of participating in these events went beyond just physical fitness. The ancient Greeks believed that mastering the discus and javelin throw was a reflection of one's overall character. It was a test of mental fortitude as well, requiring focus, discipline, and the ability to perform under pressure. And let's not forget about style. In ancient Greece, athletes took great pride in their appearance, and their throwing style was an important part of that. Many athletes would develop their own unique style of throwing that became known throughout the land. Spectators would crowd around the throwing area, eager to witness the spectacle of these powerful athletes in action. The crack of the javelin as it left the thrower's hand, or the sight of the discus soaring through the air was a sight to behold. Finally, we have equestrian events. Back in ancient Greece, the art of horsemanship was highly revered, and equestrian events were a crowd favorite, especially among the elites. Chariot racing was one of the most popular sports, and it was a true test of skill, endurance, and strategy. Imagine the scene: two teams of horses thunder down the track, their hooves pounding the earth as they race neck and neck towards the finish line. The charioteers whip their horses into a frenzy, urging them to go just a little bit faster, straining to outmaneuver their opponent. It was a thrilling sight to behold. But chariot racing was not just about speed and power. It also required a great deal of finesse and technique. The charioteers had to be able to control their horses expertly, anticipating their every move and guiding them through the twists and turns of the racetrack with precision. Horse racing was another equestrian event that was popular in ancient Greece. Riders would race on horseback across a set distance, trying to be the first to cross the line. This was a test of both the horse's and rider's endurance as well as their speed and agility. These equestrian events were not only a source of entertainment for the spectators, but they also served a practical purpose. They were a way to honor the gods, particularly Poseidon, the god of the sea, and horses. The ancient Greeks believed that horses were sacred animals, and they would hold grand processions and ceremonies in their honor. These events were a way to show off the wealth and power of the city-states, as well as their military might. After all, horses were an essential part of their army, and chariots were used in battle as well as in races. These sports not only showcased the physical prowess of the athletes, but also reflected the key aspects of ancient Greek society: honoring the gods, military training, physical fitness, personal excellence, or arete, and communal pride. Athletic competitions were tightly linked to religious festivals like the Olympics, which promoted not just competition, but also cultural and spiritual values. Victories in these competitions brought honor not just to the athletes, but also to their families and city-states. So the next time you cheer on your favorite team or watch your favorite sport, remember that you're part of a long tradition that dates back to the ancient Greeks. Their love of sports and competition helped shape our world and continues to inspire people all around the globe.